Home Depot drug tests. I waste their money. A little background on me: I am a 13-year Air Force veteran with 2 combat deployments. I have a bachelor's degree for all those dope-smoking loser posts from the boomers. Last time I was searching for employment 2020, I applied at Home Depot never intending to work there, because I had just accepted a different job. My state required that you apply at 3 places per week to get UI. I applied at HD and they desperately wanted to hire me. After the interview, the supervisor told me there was a drug test that included cannabis, legal here. Knowing that I didn't want the job anyway and how expensive the lab work is and the fact that I smoked the night before, I did it anyway. When the doc called me to let me know that I tested positive, I said yeah, I smoked the day before. He seemed confused and asked why I took the test. I told him that I know how expensive and pain in the ass it is for everyone. He was not happy. I never heard back from HD. I'm bad at spelling. Edit: I never smoke at work/on duty, only after work hours. I already had a job lined up at this point. Edit: apparently anyone who smokes weed is human garbage. Hey, half my state doesn't agree with you. Edit: the UI benefit was ending because of having another job starting. This wasn't about me trying to cheat the system, that's not how it works. This is purely about squandering time and resources. Edit: military isn't for everyone. You have the right to think what you want. Wow, this blew up. My biggest post yet. Lost a job in a legal state for weed, never smoked even close to work hours. Fucking nonsense. Edit: also 2 deployments but with the army. Weed helps my back and not to be an asshole.
Their loss. Rejecting you for a legal thing done on you own time. How is that a thing?
I'm in the States and I have a MMJ card. I'm also a certified structural welder with a decent record and I take my trade very seriously. Anytime there's a drug test, I'll either say I'd have to call my doctor as one prescription would take a month to exit my system and it's used to treat PTSD, do you make exceptions? If I have to take it, when the nurse asks me for my ID I hand them my MMJ card and say here's my ID, would you also like my doctor's info? So far, 3 of them looked the other way on THC that 100% was there. THC tests are becoming a thing of the past and it's far overdue. It's a goddamn plant. Alcohol is more dangerous and available at every street corner and sold next to the world's most addictive substance, nicotine. Once again, drugs are the decisive victor in the war on drugs. In fact, drugs never even fired a shot and still won.
Crack's 5th beer of the night. What a lazy weed smoking bum.
You can't work at Home Depot if you smoke pot, but they will hire registered sex offenders no problem.
Home Depot was the first place to drug test me. I had smoked earlier that day and my mouth was so dry they couldn't get enough saliva for an accurate reading, so they hired me anyway.
Won't hire you if you smoke a little weed, but don't care if you go out drinking every night. I hate it here.
I would think smoking bud is required to work there.
Good. Drug testing is stupid.
On behalf of a former employee in Oregon, thank you. My wish is that every stoner does this to every company in the legalized world.
Daily pot smokers can easily function at day-to-day jobs. Just because you hit a joint once and the walls were breathing doesn't mean it affects full-time smokers the same.
Coming from Canada, I will straight up refuse to work for any place or project that denies employment because of cannabis consumption. Shit is legal now and there should be tolerances/limits for testing just like alcohol.
Imagine if 80% of candidates just start failing their drug tests. It'd make the ridiculous practice obsolete.
So HD won't hire pot smokers, but they'll hire my abusive ex and then make him transfer instead of firing him for harassing the teen girls who work the registers face with raised eyebrow.
Everyone's perception of marijuana is based on nothing but stereotypes they've seen in movies. And because it's been illegal for 60+ years, no real studies were conducted on it until recently. Good on you.
It's funny, in these parts the only places that do drug tests are the Trumpelstiltskin twats with "no one wants to work anymore" posters on their doors. Almost as if it's a red flag on full display.
Hey, this isn't really how it works. The person you spoke with works at a medical review office. They're not employed directly by Home Depot, but exist as an entity apart. The results must be looked over by a medical doctor, but usually it's only entry-level employees that make this initial phone call regarding prescriptions, certainly not the doctor him or herself. Additionally, applicants admit to usage all the time when the MRO calls to ask about prescription information, so he wouldn't be surprised nor put off by this. They incur no extra costs whatsoever from a positive test, so there would be no reason for a representative of the MRO to be frustrated that you wasted Home Depot's money. Source: work in the industry.
Anyone deriding you for being a weed smoker doesn't really get the point of this subreddit, do they? They belong in r/bootlickers instead.
As a German, I think it's unbelievable that companies are even allowed to do drug tests for such bullshit jobs.
I can smoke all night and still get up on time with no hangover and effectively do my job, safely. I'll go home and privately do it in my home. Not stop at every bar and continue to drive home. Sad world we live in where cannabis is considered more dangerous than alcohol and tobacco. Idiots. Smoke an ounce straight then do 2 shots of high-octane whiskey. Which one threw you off more? Damn fools, it's a frickin' plant like a tomato and makes you smile.
I get drug testing the guy driving the forklift, but I really don't care if the guy helping me pick a paint color from 217 shades of beige smokes up.
Yes, because it's terrible if you smoke a little weed. But casual alcoholism is everywhere in the US and we don't give a shit.
As of December 2021, Home Depot in Colorado did not drug test for employment, but did when getting equipment license. Source: was hired there in December 21.
It's RL, why not? Big companies like that pay a few dollars for the tests.
I work at Home Depot. I am a 100% disabled Army veteran. When I went in for the interview I was up front. Hey, I'm on this and this. I was still hired. I also smoke weed with having my medical card. At least here in Florida they aren't doing drag tests unless you're going for a heavy equipment operator.
I understand needing people to not be impaired at work, especially in factories/hospitals, etc., but who the fuck cares if someone smokes on their own time? It's such an archaic concern.
Shit, I applied to work at a medical marijuana company and they even give drug tests, kinda ridiculous.
Cannabis being in drug tests isn't ideal. In my state there are CBD and medical weed that make you test positive on it, but you still need to pass it for workers' comp issues, or at least that's what I have been told.
In my state they can kick you off of unemployment for failing a pre-employment drug test, because by their definition, it violates the ready and available for work clause.
So, Home Depot doesn't drug test for cannabis anymore unless you are going for forklift license. They do a mouth swab but stopped for pre-hire. Source: smoke every day and was hired in 2020.
There is a stigma around pot that I find absolutely ridiculous. I work in one of these so-called safety-sensitive jobs that require drug testing with any and every fuck up. I will never understand why guys can go out and get fucking wasted and be okay to drive the next day, but you can smoke a joint and fail a tests 2 weeks later and lose your job.
It's too bad your state didn't outlaw employer testing for cannabis. I'm glad that my state, New York, outlawed drug testing for cannabis by employers, with the exception of a few specific occupations. Home Depot used to test for weed around here, but they can't anymore.
What you do on your own time is no one else's business. You said you don't show up to work high, so everyone else can shove it.
I remember one time my boss gave me a drug test. He called me into the office to try some new weed. Was pretty good. 10/10 would do the test again.
I have a bachelor's degree for all those dope smoking loser posts from the boomers. Excuse you, but that's some boomers, hee hee. Many other boomers are stoners now too. You could have left it a 13-year Air Force veteran and that would have been good enough for me. No need to show off, lol. All that is to say, you obviously can handle your shit. How else do you make it through the military and go on to get a higher education while consuming your substance of choice? I was an immigrant living in the US for over 2 decades. Moved there when I was in my late teens, so my first few jobs were as a server, retail, rather menial shit. Then I learned about the hypocrisy surrounding all this. Years went on and I got better and better jobs through job placement agencies while pursuing a record deal and playing guitar in a rock band. I was gonna keep smoking if I could, worked in the financial sector and made good money. My employer, a bank, never drug tested their candidates. I came to realize that typically companies who think less of their workforce, and who tend to hire less skilled individuals, adopt these attitudes as a way to protect themselves from their own bullshit. None of that seemed to be an issue for companies like mortgage lenders or medical IT services / claims clearing houses because they were hiring better people to begin with. There's a lot of hypocrisy about this in the workplace. This has been the case all throughout my life. I'm around middle age. Turns out, the stoners were capable of performing their jobs all along. Meanwhile, a socially condoned vice like alcohol causes many obvious problems, but it's, well, socially condoned.
Thank you. Drug testing is an invasion of privacy and should be outlawed.
I work in construction and am convinced my company only drug tests people they think will pass, or they want to get rid of.
Wait, you mean all those ding-dongs at Home Depot aren't high? The fuck is their excuse then?
Nice.
I smoke weed in a legal state and everyone around me started drug testing this year. Cannabis is not an exception most places. I've been a smoker for 15 years now, but I'm about to quit just to get a decent job. Which fucking sucks. What I do in my private time is my business if it is legal. I can't smoke but others go to work drunk. Whatever. That's fine. I'll take the prescription meds they wanna give me for anxiety and go back to work a mindless slave so we can survive. Fuck this country. Edit, word.
I'll bet that they'd have no problem with a worker coming in still a little buzzed from a night of binge drinking, hungover as all fuck, but give yourself a mood bump at 1 p.m. 2 days away from your next shift, and test positive 48 hours later? Absolutely inexcusable, right? Number waste their time, except this time I stand behind it.
They do swab test. I smoked pot and got hired there. All you had to do, was not smoke pot for 72 hours. It was a nice tolerance break. That company paid me over $4,000 during COVID to stay at home because my wife was pregnant, a month after hiring me. I can't knock the Home Depot at all.
Cannabis prohibition is all about voter suppression. https://www.google.com/amp/s/www.vox.com/platform/amp/2016/3/22/112787660/war on drugs racism Nixon.
I work for a company very similar to Home Depot, and the boss here is the biggest dick ever. I overheard him telling another employee about someone failing a drug test for pot. He actually said might as well go smoke crack under a bridge. Haha, I told him pot doesn't equal crack buddy, but that's all I can say as I smoke as well. Drug testing should be illegal.
Careful with this. HD, or any other company, may be able to report you to UI in your state for a failed drug test and have your benefits revoked. I don't know if many places would actually do this. In my state at least, if UI finds out you refused a job offer, they will terminate your benefits.
I was an engineer/supervisor at a company called PS Doors. One of my guys got hit for failing a drug test for weed, and I was overheard by my boss telling one of my peers how dumb it was considering half the welders had been sent home from coming in still drunk from the night before. I was forced to have a talk about how drug testing was important, then all management had to have drug training, which was basically 2 hours DARE to scare old people. I maintain it would be easier to do that person's job. Drug testing is a phenomenal waste of resources. Don't tell me we can't give raises when you randomly drug test people every month.
I smoke weed and I'm an engineer. The way America treats weed is so backwards and hypocritical.
I don't get why they test for weed if it's legal in that state.
PLS one time I was hired at a job I wanted so badly and they did drug testing right then and there on the spot, loudly crying face. I was devastated but more pissed and annoyed.
Excuse me, sir, do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior, r/malicious compliance?